My sister and I were sent by our parents to get married for the sake of family alliances. She chose the billionaire Leo, while I had to marry the provincial top scorer in the college entrance examination, who came from a poor family but was favored by our parents. Later, the family of the young master of the wealthy family got into a crisis due to product problems. As the project leader, my sister was sent to prison. However, the provincial top scorer developed a new patent and became a dark horse in the technology field. In the end, he acquired the group of Leo's family. After my sister was released from prison, she killed me. You bitch. If I can't live a good life, neither can you. After being reborn, my sister firmly chose the provincial top scorer. I chose to register a patent. Because this patent was invented by me. And this time it must be in my name. 1. I choose the provincial top scorer. Mom and Dad. I've thought it through. I choose Ryan. I will never make the wrong choice again in this life. My sister's sonorous words rang out, and our parents were directly stunned. I raised my eyes and glanced at her thoughtfully. The corners of my mouth curved into a sarcastic arc. She must have been reborn with me. Just right. She can repay all the debts from the previous life in this life. Ava. Although Ryan is a provincial top scorer, his family is too poor. You will suffer if you marry into his family. My mother began to admonish me earnestly. Mom, you don't understand. Marrying Leo is like stepping into a wolf's den. My sister began to admonish me excitedly. He just seems rich. But in fact, there are huge problems. It's just a false show of prosperity on the surface. After saying that, she looked at me with a complicated expression, both proud and pitying. My mother didn't understand business matters. But seeing my sister's confident look, she turned her gaze to my father. He frowned slightly and looked at her inquiringly. Ava, have you heard any rumors? My sister said mysteriously. Mom and Dad. Just trust me. The fortune alert said that I was born with the fate of wealth and honor. So my father made a final decision directly. Okay. And it's settled. Ava will marry the provincial top scorer Ryan. His current achievements have already proven that he is a potential stock, and he will have a bright future ahead. As for Scarlett, she will marry Leo. No one asked for my opinion. Even though I was sitting right next to them. They didn't even give me a glance. It was as if I was invisible. My sister looked at me provocatively. I also smiled faintly. I was already familiar with the act of playing the fool to catch the tiger from my previous life. My sister is really naive. Does she really think that the patent developed by Ryan was really his work? It's just that I thought the limelight was too much and too troublesome. So I let him be a puppet. In this life, I'm going to reveal the truth. I'm not going to pretend anymore. The top scientific research expert is me. An ex-new upstart in scientific research and the richest person in the province will also be me. To Leo, a billionaire, is at the top of the pyramid. In terms of appearance, height, education, and family background, he is a standard male led in a Korean drama. The women who chase him can line up from here all the way to France. However, he is deeply devoted to his work and is an insulator of women. All his secretaries are men. As for why such a good marriage opportunity fell to our family, it was thanks to the fact that my grandfather accidentally saved Leo's grandfather's life back then. In my previous life, I didn't know much about Leo. He was serious, unsmiling, resolute and capable, and had both ability and means. He should have been a brilliant business genius who made a splash in the business world. But he was set up by Ryan. Ryan stole the design drawings of his company and announced them 5 minutes before the launch of their new product. And the price was 50 lower. It was imagine how huge the sensation was at that time. Then Ryan took the initiative to sue Leo, accusing him of stealing the patent and hiring people to smear him. The stocks of Leo's family began to plummet. No matter how hard he tried to turn the tide, he couldn't withstand the launch of my new patent, which snatched away his remaining market share and customers. In the end, he struggled for half a year and finally declared bankruptcy. I actually admired him quite a bit and thought about cooperating with him to make money. However, Ryan knelt in front of me and begged me to help him. Because Leo was his half-brother from the same father but a different mother. He was an illegitimate child. And his mother was an Annie in Leo's family. He wanted to take revenge on Leo, thinking that Leo had stolen everything from him. There are many melodramatic stories in wealthy families. And this is just a common one. Since there was no opportunity to cooperate in the previous life, then I can give it a try in this life. Heroes always cherish talents. My sister's wedding with Ryan was extremely grand. The high-end customized wedding dress cost millions. And the best hotel was booked out. The total cost was tens of millions. All the money was paid by my father. It's a pity that the guests invited were all unimportant. Because after all, the background and resources of the groom's side were still a bit poor. If it were another man, he would surely be excited and grateful. It's a pity that Ryan is a typical Phoenix man, with extremely high vanity. Seeing that his relatives and guests were not very presentable, he thought that my sister was deliberately embarrassing him. The flash of viciousness in his eyes was clearly caught by me. My sister didn't notice it at all, and even came to show off to me complacently. "Sister, why are you all alone? Why isn't Leo accompanying you?" Then, what of a low sigh, she covered her mouth and giggled. "Oh, I forgot. Your future brother-in-law is very busy. How could he have time to accompany you? When looking for a partner, you still have to find a man who values you the most." I took an elegant sip of red wine and said with a half-smile, "What's the use of having time? A man still has to have the ability to make money. Otherwise, it won't sound good if the reputation of being a live-in son-in-law or a man who lives off his wife spreads out." My voice was not low. And Ryan, who was socializing nearby, also heard it. His face instantly fell. After saying that, I even gave him a sweet smile. "Brother-in-law, I'm not talking about you. Don't think too much. My sister has been spoiled since she was a child and is very delicate. Please take good care of her in the future. As long as you make my sister happy, things like your work and investment will be easy to talk about." Soft laughter rang out at the banquet, and the people around looked at Ryan with mocking and contemptuous eyes. The hand with which Ryan was holding the wine glass was bulging with veins. But he still wore a humble smile on his face. He is a typical person who bullies the weak and fears the strong. And he is sensitive and inferior. He will remember all this debt against my sister. "Sister, don't worry. I will definitely take good care of Ava and won't let her be wronged." Ryan reached out and put his arm around my sister's waist, and gently tucked the stray hair behind her ear. He spoke tenderly and affectionately. I know him too well. Whenever he is angrier, he acts more affectionately. I glanced at my sister again, who was shyly nestled in his arms, with a red face and a look of longing in her eyes. She is really deeply in love. I couldn't help but curl my lips in a sneer. In the previous life, when she married Leo, she had a good life. Yet she could still be so obsessed with this low-quality Phoenix man. It can only be said that after getting used to delicacies from mountains and seas, even white porridge seems like the most delicious food in the world. That night, my parents drove me to Leo's villa in the city center. Leo arrived on time and took me to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get the marriage certificate. There was neither a prenuptial agreement signed nor any discussion about the post-marriage terms. It can be seen that he is a broad-minded and affectionate person. Although he doesn't like me, he is still generous with the respect and money he gives to his wife. "I'm very busy with work and don't have time to accompany you. You can do the things you like. This card has no limit. Buy whatever you like." Leo handed me a black card with a cold expression. He was completely businesslike. In the previous life, my sister made a fuss for a long time, wanting to have a normal married life with him. Later, when she really couldn't get a response, she took the money and squandered it all over the world. She often booked out male models and made them perform striptease. Even so, Leo still pretended not to see it. In the end, my sister was worried that other women would snatch Leo away. So she threatened to jump off a building to force Leo to let her go to work with him. And in order to firmly control his money, she insisted on being the legal representative of his new company. In the end, a pair of rose gold handcuffs sent her to prison. It's really true that when God inflicts suffering, there is still hope of survival. But when one brings suffering on oneself, there is no hope. For General Manager Leo, This is my resume. I smiled and took out the resume that I had prepared long ago from my bag and handed it to him. Leo was taken aback, raised his eyebrows, and asked in confusion, "What do you mean?" I handed the black card on the table back to him and said with a smile, "I have no interest in being the little wife of a tycoon. This is my resume. I have always been among the top 3 in my grade since I was a child. I was recommended for admission to junior high school, and university. I started my own business and opened my first nail salon when I was a sophomore. Now it has been listed, and there are more than 200 branches at home and abroad. I have already achieved financial freedom. I also have a few acquaintances in the financial circle. I've had good luck playing the stock market with them and have also made some small money. I also own 5 of the stocks of Leo's family. You have always wanted to introduce scientific research fitness equipment from abroad. The boss of that company happens to be my senior. I can help with the introduction. I have already made an appointment for a dinner at 8 o'clock tomorrow night. On the surface, I'm just the unfavored daughter of the Scarlett family. In fact, I have already established my own brand and made a fortune. Although my current assets are still not much in Leo's eyes, I can already see approval in his eyes. Heroes always have a mutual appreciation for each other. And he should have already done a background check on me. The Scarlett family can't provide me with any resources. So all of this is my own achievement from scratch. Therefore, his approval of me has increased a little more. Miss Scarlett. Happy cooperation. Leo took the initiative to extend his hand and shook hands with me. I smiled faintly and gave a gentle shake. The cooperation was reached. That night, Leo stayed up late in the study. And I also worked on the business plan until the early morning next to him. After he finished his work, he originally wanted to go to bed, but seeing me still typing away on the keyboard, so he silently made 2 cups of strong tea and then sat down to continue working. I don't know what other people's wedding nights are like, but my wedding night with Leo was perfectly spent discussing investments and projects. A business empire worth tens of billions took shape tonight. We were both very satisfied with each other. After all, such a business-minded partner is not common. Finally, having settled Leo made a concluding speech. Miss Scarlett, you are the smartest, most intelligent and business-minded woman I have ever met. I'm very glad that you are my partner, not my opponent. I may not be able to beat you. 5 I chuckled softly, and was quite satisfied with Leo's self-awareness. That Leo can admit that he is not as bright as me shows that his breadth of mind is far beyond that of ordinary people. If I hadn't appeared in the previous life, even if Ryan had been as insidious as he was, Leo could have made a comeback. You're welcome. I will trouble General Manager Leo to take care of me in the future. The first meeting ended perfectly. I slept in the master bedroom, and he slept in the guest bedroom. Until the afternoon. I didn't react in time and walked out of the room with a messy hair to look for food. I saw him dressed in a formal suit, sitting at the dining table with great precision, cutting the steak gracefully. The sunlight outside the window shone on him, and he was really a sight to behold. Leo let out a low chuckle. Miss Scarlett, are you awake? Would you like to have something to eat together? Since my image was already ruined, I ruffled my hair and sat down opposite him with a carefree attitude. He handed me the cut steak. I just cut it and haven't eaten it yet. If you don't mind, you can have this one first, and I'll make another one. I was amazement and said, You can cook? He skillfully rolled up his shirt sleeves, put on an apron, and his voice was filled with a smile. Yes, heading fullstelviant session. I went to study abroad when I was 16 and stayed abroad for 5 years. My parents limited my monthly living expenses to train me. And it was expensive to eat out. So I learned how to cook. But most of them are Western dishes. Mainly because they are simple and time-saving. And the taste is just so-so. It was obvious that he was being modest. When I took the first bite of the steak, my eyes widened. This tastes so good. Instantly, I thought his back looked so tall and imposing. Of course, I didn't hold back my praise. Mr. Leo, this steak is so delicious. It's the best steak I've ever eaten. Without a doubt. If you don't want to work in the future and open a steakhouse, I will go there every day to eat. Can you make 2 more servings for me? I didn't think I was hungry. But it's so delicious that I want to eat more. Amidst my continuous praise, Leo smiled and showed his little canine teeth. His eyebrows raised. And he let out a soft laugh. Miss Scarlett, you really give a lot of emotional value. With your praise like this, I have to show off a few more dishes for you. So he made a few more kinds of steaks. And they were also extremely delicious. Because I work out regularly and often participate in marathons, my appetite is much bigger than that of most women with small appetites. As we ate, we talked about the past. We talked and laughed. And it felt as if we had met each other too late. 6 Leo seems a bit cold and unsmiling on the surface. In fact, he doesn't talk little. And he is very gentlemanly and gentle. Of course, it's because I suit his taste very well. No excellent man doesn't like a confident, capable, and relaxed woman. The light in his eyes last night was the admiration and approval for someone of the same kind. And today, he is holding his chin with his hand and looking at me with a smile. Taking the initiative to find topics. Picking up on the jokes. And his eyes are filled with liking. This man really suits my aesthetic taste as well. This meal lasted for more than 2 hours. And the more we talked, the more we hit it off. Until his phone rang. The new assembly line of the company was ready. And they asked him to take a look. He took the initiative to invite me. Scarlett, if you're free this afternoon, would you like to go to my company and have a look? There's a new project that you should be interested in. Sure. And give me 5 minutes to wash up and change my clothes. I agreed without hesitation. I just wanted to find an opportunity to visit his company anyway. Otherwise, how could I remind him that there were problems with the project? With me around, Ryan's plan couldn't be carried out. If I let Ava live a good life, it would be an insult to my ability. This is my wife. Give her the highest level of access. Leo is indeed a tycoon. With just a simple sentence. The employees of Leo's family looked at me differently. Shocked. Incredulous. Happy. Excited. Anyway, their expressions were quite complicated. But after looking around, there wasn't a single jealous person. After all the employees who can really work with him are men. The few girls are also capable and straightforward, and their eyes are only on their work. There is still a big gap between reality and what's shown on TV. If it were on TV, there would surely be a bunch of beautiful, highly educated, and capable women who like Leo. And there could be more than a dozen episodes of love scenes. But in real life, for the women who can work here, apart from working hard to prove their own value, they think that everything else is a waste of time. There isn't so much female rivalry in the world. Focusing on one's career is the most important thing. Leo doesn't avoid me at all when talking about projects. It's obvious that he regards me as one of his own. No wonder in the previous life, when Ryan took the DNA report to him and cried bitterly, saying that he had had a tough time outside all these years, had no father, and had been bullied all along. Leo softened his heart, let him join the company, mentored him personally, and even gave him shares. It's the behavior of an open and magnanimous man. But it was precisely because of this that his family business was completely ruined. Of course, I can't say these words for now. I'll plan it out gradually after getting more familiar with the situation. 7 After the meeting, Leo took me to see his newly developed product line. He introduced it with a rather proud look on his face. This intelligent blind cane was developed by our company after 10 years of research and hundreds of millions of yuan in funding. There are 17 million registered blind people in our country, which means that there is 1 blind person among every 80 people. With this intelligent blind cane, the difficulty of their travel will be greatly reduced, and they can travel alone after getting used to using it. They shouldn't be a neglected group. I felt a complex mix of emotions welling up inside me as I listened. For a product like a blind cane, which requires huge investment but has a profit margin and so low that it can be almost ignored, few businessmen would spend so much time and financial resources on researching and developing it. But this is something that benefits humanity. In the previous life, this blind cane was never finally launched on the market, because Ryan secretly replaced the raw materials of the cane, greatly reducing its quality. And later there was even a safety accident. When I found out about it at that time, I immediately made up for it. And the blind people involved in the accident received proper treatment. This product was also redesigned and sold at an extremely low price. A charity organization was even established to help blind people. Ryan was thus praised as a philanthropist. An outstanding entrepreneur. Scarlett. What do you think? Give me some suggestions. Leo asked me when he saw me carefully rubbing the blind cane. I swallowed the complex emotions in my heart and nodded with a smile, giving my compliments. It's a very good product design. Whether it's the feel of holding it, the length, or the voice reminder, it's all very good. However, I have 3 small suggestions. The first is to add a hand strap to fix the hand here on the grip rod to prevent the cane from falling in case of an accident. The second is that the color of the cane is too dark. I suggest adding fluorescent colors so that pedestrians can notice it from a distance and avoid accidents. The last one is that for such a good product, the quality must be strictly controlled. It's best to keep all the raw materials and design drawings strictly confidential. After all, if someone with ulterior motives tampers with it, it won't harm just 1 or 2 people. Although my words were euphemistic. Leo, who has been in the business world for a long time, naturally understood what I meant. His expression became a bit more serious. And he nodded solemnly. Okay. I understand. The suggestions you made are very good. I'll give the instructions. And I'll show you the finished product in 3 days. It's really convenient to talk to smart people. This is much easier than when I taught Ryan in the previous life. He understood things as soon as I explained them. Ryan was stupid and overly proud. It took a lot of effort to teach him. But he was hopelessly unteachable. In the end, I could only make him a puppet and tell him what to do. 8 After dealing with Leo's matters, I also started to get busy with my own patent. In the previous life, Ryan became a new upstart in the Beijing business circle and enjoyed great prestige just by relying on my patent. In this life, I no longer hide my capabilities and wrote my own name on it. The company in my hands is no longer hidden either. It has started to appear high profile at banquets. With Leo's reputation, I haven't failed in any project I've taken a fancy to. Of course, my sister also started to bravely enter the business world and attend banquets with Ryan. My parents accompanied them throughout the whole process, looking just like a real family of 4. Enjoying a harmonious and happy time. Scarlett, do you want to go up and say hello? Leo asked me when he saw that my gaze had been fixed on them. I rubbed the stem of the goblet in my hand and said with a half-smile, no need. As long as you leave for 3 seconds. My sister will come over. Is it really that interesting? After saying that, he really walked away to socialize. Sure enough, 3 seconds later, my sister walked over gracefully. There was a proud and arrogant smile on her face. Sister, that dress of yours today is the new style from last season. It's already out of date. Your husband is Leo, a billionaire. Why did he let you go out looking so shabby? Although my husband isn't a well-known big shot yet, he's very generous to me. And new styles and limited editions of each season are all delivered to my door. I looked her up and down and sneered. It's just a small banquet. It's not worth my while to dress up carefully. I just picked one from the cloakroom and put it on. Your whole outfit is worth over 1,000,000 yuan. But you're just doing it to support your husband's image. Well, if he had the ability, you wouldn't need to work so hard. In terms of verbal skills, 10 of my sisters combined couldn't out-talk me. After all, she's just a peacock spreading its feathers, showing off the few things she has. And those are all trifles that I don't care about. No matter how much she shows off, she's just a clown showing off. I looked up and met Ryan's gaze not far away. The anger and unwillingness in his eyes flashed by, and then his mouth curled up, and he smiled and nodded at me. I also smiled slightly. It's really interesting. This man who has risen from poverty has once again put the blame on my sister. It's just a pity that my sister doesn't have the means and ability to hold him in check. It's only a matter of time before she suffers the backlash. I'll just sit back and watch the good show. 9. Don't be too cocky. My sister blushed with anger and said, Leo will only be in the limelight for a while. Sooner or later, he'll go bankrupt and his business will collapse. And you'll be in a terrible state by then. And your whole life will be completely ruined. I had a lazy smile on my lips, looking playful and mocking. Are you so sure? Have you experienced it yourself? My sister gave me a fierce glare. Just talking big now won't do any good. In the future, even if you kneel and beg us to save you, it's impossible. I curled my lips into a cold smile and said meaningfully. Then let's wait and see. Staring at her retreating back, the smile in my eyes turned cold. I reached out and touched my neck. In the previous life. She suddenly rushed out from the crowd and stabbed a dagger deeply into my neck. Then came the warm blood, along with her ferocious and vicious words. Bitch! If I can't live well, you won't either. It was clearly me who chose first. And Mom and Dad loved me more. Why did I lose to you? You bitch. The people in prison are all perverts. They're all demons. It's all your fault. You can go to hell. Just as I was lost in my memories, Leo's gentle voice sounded. After all, women understand women best. You were exactly right when you said it would be 3 seconds. There was a smile in his voice. And he was holding a fruit salad for me in his hand. However, I'm a bit curious. Why is she so certain that I'll go bankrupt? I adjusted my emotions and said half seriously, half jokingly. Who knows? Maybe your father has an illegitimate son outside? And then he comes to you asking for shares? And then secretly messes around in your company? Leo raised his eyebrows and actually started to think about it seriously. I shouldn't be that stupid. Right? I was amused by him and reached out to pat him on the shoulder. Don't worry. With me here, your business is definitely secure. He smiled and nodded. And we gently clinked our glasses. Then I'll trouble General Manager Scarlett to take care of everything. The domineering CEO turned into a cute puppy in an instant. Who can resist this? After a month of my unremitting efforts, my father's company finally had trouble with its capital chain turnover. To make matters worse, Raya was set up in his business and directly lost 270 million yuan. Almost all of the family's fixed assets had been sold off, so my parents finally thought of me. They specially invited Leo and me to go home for a casual meal. Originally, heading Filselt Laibsai, I wanted to go back alone to watch the fun. But Leo had even prepared the gifts. Your family is on the verge of bankruptcy. And I also deserve half of the credit. As a partner, it's reasonable for me to go and see the results. Right? He knew about my previous situation at home and didn't naively ask me to choose to forgive. Instead, when he saw me taking action, he also took action and got a share of the spoils. What else could I do? I could only smile and nod. Reasonable. 10 after living 2 lifetimes. It was the first time I saw the dishes I liked on the family dining table. It was also the first time I saw my parents showing me such gentle and kind smiles. It was quite interesting. Scarlett, why have you lost so much weight? Didn't you eat well outside? Mom's heart aches just looking at you. Mom showed a false and exaggerated smile. I pursed my lips, just swallowing the smile when Leo's soft chuckle sounded beside me. Mom. When Scarlett first married me, she weighed less than 100 pounds. Eating the meals I cooked every day, she now weighs 105 pounds. Mom gave an embarrassed smile. I must have remembered it wrong. Seeing that you two have such a good relationship, your dad and I can rest assured. Since you were a child, your dad and I have felt sorry for Scarlett. She's the younger sister, sensible and obedient, and never gives us anything to worry about. I finally couldn't hold back and let out a sneer. With a half smile, I said, Mom and Dad, if I remember correctly, this is the first time you praised me. Mom shut up with an embarrassed look, and Dad cleared his throat. You're just too fond of nitpicking. Come and sit down and eat. Leo pulled out the chair for me and then picked up some food for me. This was a normal thing at home. But when my elder sister saw this scene, she was completely stunned. She said in disbelief, how could you two have such a good relationship? You must be faking it. Leo frowned slightly, his face full of confusion. These days, he has been obviously courting me. Although he is a domineering CEO, He is quite innocent because he has never been in a relationship before. Since he received Western gentlemanly education since he was a child, I have had a very good experience. Why do you say that? Isn't it obvious that I like your younger sister? Leo asked directly. My elder sister was shocked again, pointing at my nose and spitting as she said, "Why her? Why do you like her? Aren't you most fond of your work? You said that women are troublesome, stupid, and unreasonable." The huge villa fell silent instantly. This didn't seem like a sister-in-law questioning her brother-in-law, but rather a woman questioning the man she loved. Seeing Ryan's face turn livid, I added fuel to the fire beside him. Sister, although Leo is first class in appearance, figure, education, and earning ability, much better than your husband, but we're already married. It's no use regretting it now. I'll ask my husband to help promote Ryan. Although he doesn't have much ability, he's still your husband after all. We can't let him embarrass you too much. Any man would not be able to tolerate hearing these words. Sure enough, Ryan, who was incompetent yet arrogant, suddenly stood up from his chair. The look in his eyes as he looked at my elder sister was one of undisguised anger. Since you look down on me so much, then forget it. After saying that, he left with a swagger. My elder sister quickly jumped up from the chair, ignoring her high heels, and trotted after him. Husband, I've never looked down on you. I love you. I really love you. Don't listen to my sister talking nonsense. I chose you without hesitation between you and Leo back then. Although you don't have money or ability now, you will definitely be able to in the future. You'll become a new upstart in the Beijing circle and a giant in scientific research. Watching their backs disappear at the door, Leo said seriously, Scarlett, although it's not very polite, your elder sister doesn't seem to be in a very normal state of mind. I burst out laughing. Mom was just about to scold me, but looking at Leo beside me, she swallowed the words that came to her lips. Instead, she put on a smiling face. Scarlett, how can you talk about your brother-in-law like that? He's a promising stock, and he has a bright future ahead of him. Dad also chimed in. Yeah, hadn't fel why in session. It's hard for a noble son to come from a poor family. He can endure hardship, is willing to make progress, and will have a bright future. Then he got straight to the point. Leo, the main reason for inviting you today is to ask you for a favor. Recently, there have been some problems with several projects of the company, and there's a shortage of funds. The amount of money we're short of isn't much. Just 500 million yuan. We'll transfer it back to you once the funds are turned over. This was a typical case of trying to get something for nothing. There was no contract, no collateral, and they just asked for it directly. Seeing how well Leo treated me, they wanted to take advantage of him. Leo let out a soft sigh and exclaimed, Dad, what a coincidence. I also came here today to discuss a new energy project with you. Recently, the projects abroad have been stretched too thin, and there are also some problems with the funds. We don't have any money left. Mom said eagerly, starting to cry poor. These days, I don't know what bad luck we've had. We've lost money on every project we've done. Ryan just started his own business and has also spent a lot of money. There's no working capital left in the company or at home, and we've even sold several houses and stocks. Son-in-law, you can't just ignore our family. Leo shook his head and pretended to be in a difficult position. It's not that I don't want to help. The market is not good now, and there are problems with the capital chain. Dad also got anxious. And you can go to the bank for a loan. There's definitely no problem getting that amount of money. Leo still shook his head and didn't say anything more. So Mom and Dad turned their eyes on me. Mom started playing the emotional card and crying. Scarlett, your dad has borrowed money from many people, but it didn't work out. The bank is also holding back on the loan. Are you just going to watch our family go under? Mom knows that you're the kindest and most sensible. Please persuade your husband for us. We were biased towards your sister before and ignored you. In the future, Mom and Dad will definitely treat you well and make up for what we owed you before. I curled my lips into a cold smile. So they had always known that they had ignored me in the past. In my previous life, I had also questioned myself why mom and dad were so biased towards my elder sister. Was there something I did wrong? So when I made Ryan a puppet, I also helped mom and dad's groups several times to make it stronger. But it wasn't until my elder sister was imprisoned, and I heard them secretly say why it wasn't me who went to jail, that I completely gave up hope. Mom and Dad. There are indeed problems with Leo's company's funds. The bank loan can be approved, but the shareholders will definitely not agree. However, Leo gave me 5 of the shares of his company before. If I sell all the assets I have on hand, I can barely scrape together 500 million yuan. Mom beamed with joy and said, "Scarlett, Mom knew you were capable." Leo cleared his throat and said casually, "That 5 of the shares was the betrothal gift I gave you. It's not appropriate for you to just sell it like this. Is it?" I snorted softly. "What's inappropriate about it? What you gave me is mine. Besides, Mom and Dad also prepared 20 of the shares for me. Although it's not as valuable as your family's shares, it's still a little token of Mom and Dad's love for me." At that time, some people questioned that they were too biased towards my elder sister, so they said it casually to save face. But now that I brought it up seriously, although they were reluctant, they still pretended to be generous and said, "That's right. My own precious daughter definitely can't be wronged. We'll transfer the shares to you in a few days." Dad started the delaying tactic. Leo nodded. "Okay. When you transfer the shares to Scarlett, I'll also ask my secretary to deal with the matter of her shares. After all, she's my wife. I still can't let her sell her assets. I'll take the 500 million yuan." The words were so obvious. Although Mom and Dad looked unhappy, they both nodded in agreement. The stock matters were directly handled that afternoon. I was overjoyed holding the shares that were originally mine. Leo smiled and teased, "You bought these shares for 500 million yuan and lost a lot. But you're still so happy?" I smiled and said jokingly, "How can I not be happy to see them frustrated? Besides, did I buy shares? I bought their last hope. Will this 500 million yuan not end up in my hands in the end?" Did Dad think that the reason why several of his projects didn't succeed was because of a lack of funds? How naive. That was a trap I had set up long ago. I started setting up the trap on the first day I was reborn. So, they didn't lose unjustly. The next day, having fulfilled my obsession, I was busy taking over the projects of Dad's group. When Leo brought me lunch, he brought me a piece of news that I had expected. "Ryan is my father's illegitimate son outside. The DNA test is conclusive." I was immediately interested. While biting into a spare rib, I smiled and asked, "Did he cry his eyes out, saying that he had a hard time outside, was looked down upon, and wanted to learn from you?" Leo nodded with a rather complicated expression. "Yeah, it was exactly the same." I chuckled. "Then what did you do?" He looked at me seriously and said, "If I hadn't met you before, I would definitely have agreed. Although my father has passed away, this group was founded by my father, and Ryan also has some connection to it. But after getting to know him these days, I found that he has a problem with his character. If such a person has power and influence, the harm will be too great. So I rejected his proposal to join the company. But I promised to give him an annual share of the company's profits. About 1 million yuan. I have to say, he is a true gentleman." I nodded in approval. "Your proposal is very good. But you'd better be careful that he might bite you back." Leo nodded and said solemnly, "Okay. I will pay attention. He really is a domineering CEO who listens to advice." Ryan's revenge came a little slower than expected. Because I interfered, he didn't gain Leo's trust, and his plan to replace the raw materials of the blind guide stick with inferior ones failed. Ryan spent a lot of money bribing the company's technicians, and his plan to imitate the blind guide stick succeeded. Just 5 minutes before Leo's blind guide stick was launched, Ryan also held a new product launch conference. This time, Mom and Dad gambled all the family's assets on this bet. It was either success or failure. But unfortunately, I had anticipated it, so the design drawings he bought at a huge cost were fake. Moreover, I had in my hands the video of Ryan bribing the technicians, and the transaction ran for records. I called the police directly. Just as he was standing on the stage, giving a confident speech. The police appeared and put rose gold handcuffs on him. At the same time, my elder sister, the big fool, didn't learn from her mistakes and still became the legal representative for Ryan. She was also given a pair of rose gold handcuffs as a bonus. At that time, I was sitting in the car at the door watching the commotion. I could hear her hysterical and angry screams even through the car window. No, I don't want to go to jail. Why? I chose Ryan. Why is this still the result? I'm not willing. I'm not willing. But no matter how unwilling she was, it was useless. Because I won't fall into the same trap twice. The day after my elder sister was sent to prison, I arranged for several sisters to go in and take good care of her. As for Ryan, he gave me a bit of a surprise. Because he was good-looking. When he was being bullied and abused by the prison boss, he regained the memories of his previous life. He started writing to me frequently. And every word was full of love. Leo got jealous. Sure enough. Men with strong physiques have even stronger possessiveness. 5 years later, Ryan and my elder sister were released from prison at the same time. They really are a match made in heaven. My elder sister didn't come to find me first. Instead, she went to find Ryan, thinking that he would surely make a comeback. Unfortunately, Ryan thought that she had ruined everything for him. Originally, hadn't fulfilled my obsession. When he was with me, he was in the limelight, admired by everyone, and was respectfully called General Manager Ryan wherever he went. But now, as a former top scorer in the college entrance examination, he is burdened with a criminal record and can't even find a decent job. Of course, what he had done before also made Leo completely give up on him. Not to mention the annual share of 1 million yuan. It was already the greatest mercy not to sue him for compensation for the group's losses. Mom and Dad's group also went bankrupt. Of course, they came to me several times, hoping that I would lend a helping hand. What a joke. In the end, they were left with a little bit of their old savings, which could barely support the expenses of a middle-class family. But when my elder sister once again instigated Mom and Dad to lend money to Ryan for investment and they agreed, their miserable rest of their lives were already doomed. Ryan only reluctantly got back together with my elder sister because he could get the money. But now he no longer hides his true nature as a Phoenix man. Especially after picking up some bad habits in prison. He not only commits domestic violence but also has a wild lifestyle. Several times, my elder sister was sent to the hospital in the early morning. Even so, my elder sister still stuck by him. She even brainwashed Mom and Dad, saying that he would definitely make a comeback. Half a year later, Ryan went bankrupt and then disappeared without a trace. Because Dad, Mom, and my elder sister all owed huge amounts of usury for him. If he didn't run away, he would be really stupid. Mom and Dad, who were already old, started their life on the run, hiding everywhere. Under the overpass, they were chased by stray dogs and had to pick up garbage to eat. These were just trifles. Of course, Mom and Dad also came to me once. I directly contacted the usurers. That time, they almost died at the hands of the usurers. Just right. She can pay off the debts of her previous life in this life. Of course, they cursed me very harshly, but I thought every word was pleasant to hear. To prevent my elder sister from trying to kill me again, I specifically hired bodyguards. Unexpectedly, my elder sister showed up the next day. This time, she hid in the underground parking lot. The moment I parked the car, she rushed out with a dagger in her hand. Scarlett, you stole everything that should have been mine. You deserve to die. The moment her dagger touched me, my bodyguard kicked her 10 meters away. She coughed violently, and blood stained the ground red. I walked up to her and looked down at her from above. Her face was contorted with pain, and a faint, pleading voice came out. Cough. Huff. Save me. I don't want to die. I curled my lips and sneered. Believe me, you'll regret this decision in the future. She watched me call for an ambulance and let out a sigh of relief. What she didn't know was that she wasn't going to an ordinary hospital, but a rehabilitation center. For the rest of her life, she would be locked up like a mentally ill person. She owed me that. I will make her pay back 100. Blake married me because of a recommendation letter that could get him into college. But the next day after our marriage, news of the resumption of the college entrance examination came. In the following decades, Blake always regretted that if he had waited a little longer, he could have entered college on his own ability and he wouldn't have missed the woman he loved. After being reborn, the first thing I did was to tear up that recommendation letter. 1. The sound of the paper being torn was very crisp. Just like my fragile and vulnerable life in my previous life. In my previous life, Blake married me because of this recommendation letter for college, and I had used up all the influence of my father, who was a heroic soldier. A Nash family and my family were neighbors. Their family was poor and my parents, being kind-hearted, often took care of him. Blake and I grew up together. He was gentle, fair-skinned, loved reading, and had good grades. He was different from those naughty kids in the brigade, and it was natural for me to fall in love with him. Our two families also arranged a baby betrothal for us. I always thought we would be happy like this for a lifetime until Vivian came. She was a girl from the city, bright and beautiful. When she smiled, her white teeth were dazzling. With just a few words, she could make the composed Blake blush and feel at a loss. Some people praised them as a well-matched couple and some people looked at me with pity. I felt bitter in my heart but could do nothing. Just when I thought I was going to lose Blake, this opportunity to go to college came. My father was a soldier and sacrificed his life on the battlefield. Out of consideration for the family of the martyr, the organization gave me the recommendation quota for college. Blake dreamed of going to college, so I gave this quota to him. He quickly distanced himself from Vivian and married me. But in the following decades, they never really cut off their connection. On the night of our marriage, he was taking care of the sick Vivian. When Blake went to college, Vivian got into a junior college in the same city as him. They were sweet on campus while I was taking care of his whole family back in the hometown. After Vivian graduated, the job assigned to her was not ideal. So Blake arranged for her to be his assistant while I was braving the wind and snow to run a street stall to earn hard-earned money. Even when I had a miscarriage during my pregnancy, he was accompanying Vivi and during her childbirth and confinement, both at home and outside. In work and life, Vivian and I took care of everything and he enjoyed the benefits of having two women. But Blake was concerned about his reputation. Even though he gave all his love and care to Vivian, he didn't divorce me. Because everything he had was obtained because of this recommendation letter of mine. He was afraid of being criticized for forgetting his roots. So he wasted my whole life and even blamed me for binding him with this recommendation letter. Aurora. It's time to go to work. Blake's voice came from outside the house. I quickly swept the shredded paper into the drawer. Recently, it's the busy farming season and the whole brigade is busy planting autumn wheat. Okay. When we got to the field, everyone looked at us in unison because no one expected Blake to suddenly officially get engaged to me. In these days, there had been a lot of gossip in the brigade. Vivian also stared straight at Blake and me. Her eyes filled with resentment. Blake's expression was a bit uncomfortable. Their eye contact was like that of a couple about to part in resentment. I pretended not to notice and busied myself with the piece of land assigned to me. Blake was beside me. Brother Nash. Vivian's delicate voice rang out. Why are the wheat seedlings I planted all crooked? Can you help me? Her distressed look was pitiful. Blake subconsciously glanced at me. Then pursed his lips. I'm not done here yet. You can ask someone else. All right then. Vivian nodded, looking aggrieved, and then suddenly exclaimed, it hurts so much. What's wrong? Blake subconsciously ran over and asked anxiously. Let me see. Vivian covered her fair and tender finger, frowned, and tears were welling up in her eyes. It's okay. I just got scratched by a wheat seedling. How could you be so careless? Blake reached out to take a look, but noticing the glances from around, he had to withdraw his hand and turn to ask me. Aurora. Comrade Vivian hurt her hand. I'll take her to find some medicine. He used a stiff form of address to cover his concern for Vivian. Sure. I replied without looking up. Continuing with my work. Blake left in a hurry with Vivian. Before leaving, Vivian gave me a provocative look. 2. Aurora. It seems you can't hold on to your man. Someone said with a laugh. That's right. Look at how concerned Nash was just now. Those wheat seedlings are even more tender than a child's face. How could they scratch a cut? Exactly. Look at our hands. Chapped like old tree bark. And no one cares about us. I looked at my rough and cracked hands and smiled. Blake was just too concerned to think straight. Aurora. Have you set the wedding date? You should do it soon. Don't let anything go wrong. The neighbor aunt asked with concern. I smiled at her and said. Not yet. There's no rush. Why not? Look at that Vivian. The aunt started chattering. I didn't think much and just went on with my work. These wheat seedlings were the hope of the whole brigade. The harvest next year depended on them. By the time we finished work, Blake and Vivian still hadn't come back. Instead of going home, I got on my bicycle and went to the commune. I called the organization. Uncle Zoo, Havel Zoo. I received the recommendation letter. Thank you. You've been so considerate. But. I paused and then continued. I don't want this recommendation letter anymore. Don't want it? What do you mean? His voice was filled with anger. I knew that the higher-ups had been busy for a long time for this quota. I felt guilty but still said. Because I've realized that this quota was earned with my father's life. I can't use it to trade for someone else's future anymore. I was wrong before. Only thinking about myself. Now. Let's leave this quota to those who need it more. There was silence on the other end. After a long while. The voice on the other end said. All right. The daughter of Wago is indeed not a coward. I smiled. My name is Aurora. Actually. My father named me Dawn. But when registering my household, it was written as Aurora. My father often said with a smile. Your name is a lucky accident. Your temper is as stubborn and hard as a rock. Just like me in this regard. But in my previous life, I never became a person as admirable as him. In my previous life, with such a great opportunity to go to college in front of me. How could I not be tempted? I grew up in the countryside and had never seen the outside world. I also wanted to fly out. But just because I wanted to make Blake's dream come true, I gave it up. This life, I've made up my mind. I want to take the college entrance examination. I want to do what I want to do. Moreover, I also want to see if without this recommendation letter, Blake can really get into college? Can he be happy with Vivian? 3 in the evening. Blake came to knock on the door. Aurora. I came to look for you just now. Why weren't you here? He explained. I just took Vivian to the clinic in the afternoon. She wasn't feeling well. There's nothing else. Don't think too much. Sure. I went to the commune to ask about the letter after work. I said deliberately. Sure enough, Blake's eyes lit up. How about it? Should be arriving soon. Right? He looked expectant. I remained calm. Not yet. The organization said this isn't a small matter. And it won't be that quick. Oh, that's it. Blake was a bit disappointed but quickly perked up. It doesn't matter. Anyway, heading fulfilled my obsession. We're getting married soon. It'll be a double celebration then. I couldn't help but smile inwardly. It wouldn't be a double celebration. The day after we got married in the previous life. When the news of the resumption of the college entrance examination came out, the wonderful expression on Blake's face was something I'd never forget. My mother said the 8th day of next month is a good day. How about we get married on that day? Blake asked me. It was the same time as in the previous life. I thought for a moment and said with a smile. How about the 10th? I like the number 10. It represents perfection. Sure. Blake didn't think much and nodded in agreement. Then I'll go back and tell them. Okay. I nodded. All right. Aurora. I won't talk to you anymore. I have to go watch the granary. The granary stored all kinds of farming tools and the harvested grain of the brigade. It was the most precious asset of the whole brigade. Someone had to guard it every night. This job was tough and not many people were willing to do it. But it had high work points. So Blake was willing to take it. He was saving money for college now. I smiled and saw Blake off. Then I went back into the house. Took out the shredded paper in the drawer. And took out a new piece of paper. I copied the words on it. On the 9th day. When the news of the resumption of the college entrance examination is announced, I'll also give him this recommendation letter. I really want to see how Blake will choose then. Wasn't he regretful? This time, I'll give him a chance to choose. I picked up the pen and drew a circle on the 9th day on the calendar. 4. I dug out the textbooks that I had put away at the bottom of the trunk and started studying eagerly. In the previous life, after Blake went to college, he stayed on campus as a teacher. His life was smooth, and he achieved success and fame. He disliked me for being uneducated and was afraid of losing face. So he never took me in front of his colleagues and students. Even when there were guests at home, he would ask me to cook and then stay in the room without coming out. In order to be worthy of him, I studied knowledge by myself, attended night school, and even memorized all the books in his study by rote, just so that I could talk to him more. But he never knew about these things. Or rather, he just didn't care. Now, I applied the same determination from the previous life to my studies. Since I no longer had the quota to go to college but still wanted to get out of here, I had to have the courage to go all out. I worked during the day and studied at night. I was even dreaming about doing math problems. I was reciting math formulas even when planting wheat seedlings. I was so tired that I was dizzy, and I almost forgot about Blake until he stood in front of me with a simple silver hairpin. Aurora, I don't have much money, so I can't give you a bride price. I can only buy you a piece of jewelry. Blake said. I hope you'll like it. He looked a bit embarrassed about his financial situation, but his eyes were calm because he was certain that I would understand him. Sister Aurora. I accompanied Brother Nash to pick this hairpin at the department store in the county. We spent a long time choosing it. Vivian said in a soft voice, standing next to him. The golden earrings on her ears were swaying, stinging my eyes. I knew that this was what Blake bought for her with his limited money as compensation for getting engaged to me. And all I had was a plain hairpin. I touched my short hair and just felt it was ridiculous. What was even more ridiculous was that in the previous life, I had cherished this broken hairpin for decades. Nash, where am I supposed to put this hairpin? I asked with a smile. Blake was stunned for a moment before he realized. I'm sorry, Aurora. I didn't notice. I'll go to the county to exchange it for you tomorrow. Didn't notice? My parents raised me to be tough and I'd had short hair since I was a child. How could he say he didn't notice? Even though I knew Blake's nature well and had no feelings for him at all, I still felt sad at this moment. No need, I said, pretending to be considerate. You can return this hairpin. After all, you still need money for college. Seeing that I was so considerate of him, there was a rare hint of guilt in Blake's eyes. He glanced at Vivian's earlobes and fell silent. I'm sorry to have wronged you, he said. I smiled. It's okay. Vivian pouted unhappily. Brother Nash, we have to go to the gathering place. It's been so busy recently, and we finally have some free time. We agreed to get together tonight. Blake was close to those people at the gathering place and often discussed poems and articles with them. But he never took me there. But this time, he asked me, Aurora, do you want to go? Looking at Vivian's suddenly changing expression, I smiled even wider. Sure. 5 welcome our golden boy and jade girl too. The person at the gathering place hadn't finished saying the last word come, when they saw me behind Blake and Vivian. The word stopped abruptly, and everyone looked at each other in dismay. Golden boy and jade girl. I nodded in agreement. They're really not wrong. No, Aurora. They're just joking. Blake explained. It doesn't matter. They didn't say anything wrong. I said very casually. Blake was taken aback. He looked closely at my face and after making sure there was no abnormality, he let out a sigh of relief. There were several dishes on the table, as well as peanuts, walnut cakes, white rabbit creamy candies, etc. They should have each contributed something to put this together. I'm in a good mood today. How about we have a drink? A person said, holding a bottle of wine. Okay. Let's drink to our heart's content today. Everyone responded enthusiastically. Someone looked at me and teased. Aurora, you can have a drink too. Blake said. No. Aurora can't. Come on. Brother Nash. Let sister or have a drink. This is rice wine. It has a low alcohol content. Vivian interrupted Blake before he could finish speaking and then looked at me. Since sister or came to have fun with us. Don't be a spoilsport. Blake looked at me hesitantly. Aurora, why don't you have a little? It should be okay. I looked into his eyes. And he avoided my gaze guiltily. Blake knew that I couldn't drink. When I was a child, the villagers teased me and dipped a chopstick in some wine for me. I immediately got a rash all over my body. It was Blake who took me to the clinic. Fine. I'll drink. But let's make it clear first. If something happens to me, all of you have to pay for my medical bills. I said with a cold snort. I was the daughter of a martyr. If something happened, no one could afford the consequences. So, no one dared to say anything. They started drinking merrily. Blake was supposed to go and watch the granary later and usually didn't drink. But he couldn't resist Vivian's gentle persuasion and had a drink. Vivian soon had a flushed face and blurred eyes. She tugged at her collar, saying she was hot, and a few buttons came undone. Several male attendees turned their heads in embarrassment. Don't move. Blake quickly grabbed her hand, and Vivian leaned softly against him. You shouldn't drink anymore. No, I still want to drink. I still owe them drinks. Vivian said pitifully. They all bullied me. Blake could only sigh helplessly. I'll drink for you. Okay? His tone was doting. And Vivian leaned closer to him, almost nestling in his arms. The two of them were affectionate and oblivious to everything else. 6. I watched their intimacy coldly until Blake finally remembered that I was still there. And he started to explain in a flurry. Aurora. Vivian drank too much. I'm just taking care of her. I couldn't help but roll my eyes. They were almost treating this place like a bed. Is this what he calls taking care? If this were during the years of strict crackdown, these two would be shot several times over. Brother Nash. Don't. At this time. Vivian started mumbling in a daze. Don't marry someone else. Okay? Her voice was tinged with sobs. The whole place fell silent. Blake suddenly tightened his arms. And there was a hint of emotion and struggle in his eyes. But he quickly regained his composure. I knew what he was thinking. He was an egoist. Even if he liked Vivian, he wouldn't give up the college entrance quota for her. Blake let out a low sigh. You shouldn't marry anyone else anyway. A drunk guy from the group shouted. I knew this person. He liked Vivian. Vivian treats you so well. And you two are in love. Why do you have to marry that Aurora? He pointed at Blake's nose and cursed. Don't think we don't know. It's all for the chance to go to college. Isn't it? Just for the sake of going to college. You're abandoning Vivian. You're despicable. Shameful. What nonsense are you talking about? Blake's face turned red with embarrassment as his thoughts were exposed. What did I say wrong? If it were going to college, would you even look at Aurora? What does our Aurora have that can compare to Vivian? I saw Vivian's lips curl up. Obviously, having fulfilled my absai. She was faking being drunk. I deliberately asked Blake. Nash. Is what he said true? No. Blake replied quickly. Then let me ask you. If there was no college entrance quota, would you still marry me? I continued. Or, if there were other opportunities to go to college, would you still marry me? Blake was about to answer, yes immediately. But looking at Vivian's face in his arms, he fell silent. Many times. Not answering is an answer in itself. I looked sad on the surface. But I was laughing inside. I hope he can really stick to his current thoughts then. 7. The 9th day arrived soon. Early in the morning. I used a red pen to draw a circle on the calendar and quietly waited for the broadcast. A news of the resumption of the college entrance examination came. The excited voice of the brigade leader rang out 3 times on the broadcast, and the whole brigade erupted in excitement. Especially those young people. Their eyes filled with tears. Cheering and jumping for joy. Their excited voices spread across the mountains and fields. Great. We can take the college entrance examination. We can go back to the city. The wind blew across the mountains and fields. The newly planted wheat seedlings were bent over, their heads nodding as if they were also celebrating this great event that would change the fate of countless people. Only Blake's face was pale and green. an expression that was quite a sight. I timely handed him the recommendation letter. Nash. The recommendation letter is here. You can go to college. I told him joyfully. He forced a smile and took the recommendation letter with a complicated look in his eyes. Thank you, Aurora. Blake spoke very slowly and softly. His expression was a bit dazed. I can go to college. Brother Nash. Vivian ran over from afar, her face beaming with joy. Brother Nash. The college entrance examination has been resumed. We can take the college entrance examination together. You don't have to marry Aurora anymore. Blake's body trembled. Looking at the letter in his hand, his eyes were a bit blank. Vivian didn't realize I was there until she ran up to us. She wasn't embarrassed but instead flipped her hair, taking on a victorious pose. Sister Aurora, now that the college entrance examination has been resumed, you don't have anything to hold over Brother Nash. Brother Nash can get into college on his own ability. I didn't pay attention to Vivian's words, and instead looked at the distracted Blake with a smile. Blake, now two opportunities are in front of you. This time, you won't regret it. Right? 8 tomorrow is the wedding date. I was certain that Blake would come to my place before tonight. Sure enough, Blake came. Aurora, I've thought about it for a long time. I want to sign up for the college entrance examination and see if I can get into college on my own. If I can't, I still have the recommendation letter. So, he looked at me hesitantly. Can we postpone our wedding date? Until after the college entrance examination. I looked at the man I had been with for half a lifetime. I understood that Blake wanted to play it safe. If he got into college, he could fly away with Vivian. If he didn't, he still had my recommendation letter as a backup. How could someone be so shameless? I was so angry that my body was shaking. But I still smiled and replied to him. Sure. I support you. I knew you were the best to me. Blake let out a sigh of relief and beamed with joy. I also smiled. Blake, what Blake? There's no such thing as having it both ways in this world. The college entrance examination registration started, and I slapped the registration form on the brigade leader's desk. He looked at me. Then at the registration form. Repeating this 3 times. I had seen this look before. When I said I would give the college entrance quota to Blake. Aurora. You want to take the college entrance examination? Yes. I nodded. The brigade leader seemed to want to say something but held back. Aurora. You really don't have to push yourself so hard for a man. He thought I was doing it for Blake. I took a deep breath and said seriously. Uncle. I'm not doing it for anyone else. I'm doing it for myself. What? He looked disbelieving. It's true, Uncle. I've thought it through. My father was a hero. And I'm his daughter. I can't be a coward. I said each word slowly. There was no chance before. But now that the opportunity is right in front of me, I must seize it. Don't worry. I won't disgrace my father. The brigade leader was stunned. He took a few puffs of his tobacco pipe, then silently signed and stamped the registration form. Study hard. He patted me on the shoulder. I will. I nodded firmly. With the opportunity to take the college entrance examination in front of them. Although there was only 1 month for review, everyone wanted to give it a try. Those who could sign up did so. During the day, there was a lot of farm work, leaving little time for study. So the brigade allocated an empty room for everyone and set up a college entrance examination review class. The kerosene lamps burned until dawn. I carried my books and went to the review class. Everyone looked at me in surprise. Including Blake. Vivian was incredulous. Aurora, you're also taking the college entrance examination? If you can take it, why can't I? I retorted. I'm over 18 years old. Have a high school or technical secondary school diploma. Am physically and mentally healthy. And have excellent moral character. Which of these requirements do I not meet? Why can't I take the college entrance examination? Vivian was left speechless by my questions and couldn't come up with a retort. Blake, however, seemed to understand something. Aurora, I know. You're taking the college entrance examination for me. You don't know anything. I held back my urge to curse and opened my book. Cedric, who was sitting in front of me, turned around, seeing the book in my hand. His eyes lit up. Aurora, can you lend me this book? Anyway, heading fiancé by exception. You're just pretending and not really going to study. Textbooks and other review materials were the most sought-after things at the moment. My book was well kept and new, so he took a fancy to it right away. Many people nearby were also secretly eyeing it. I looked up at him. How do you know I won't study? He sneered and curled his lips. With your level, what can you study? You're just going to make up the numbers. It's a pity for this textbook to be in your hands. It should be put to good use. Besides, you don't need to take the college entrance examination. With your father, you can live a better life than us. My face turned cold. Really? Then aren't you quite pitiful that your father didn't die earlier? It's such a pity that you can't enjoy a good life. Cedric was stunned for 2 seconds and then flew into a rage. What did you say? His face turned red with anger. Aurora, what are you so proud of? I must say, Vivian is thousands of times better than you. The two of them standing together are a perfect match. A match made in heaven. You should take a good look at the gap between you and Vivian. Even your names can't compare. One is like a stone, the other like a beautiful jade. He was already speaking without thinking. A stone and a beautiful jade? I found it somewhat funny. Why should I compare with her? It's meaningless. And, how do you know? I paused, looked at him, and said a few words. Can't a stone from another mountain polish the jade? 10. A stone from another mountain can polish the jade. The first time I saw this sentence, I was stunned for a long time. People around me always compared me with Vivian, saying that she was prettier, smarter, and more educated than me. But no one ever told me that a stone from another mountain can polish the jade. Words like diligence can make up for clumsiness, and the slow-witted bird should start flying early.